I stumbled into a haunted forest of nightmares where nobody ever returned. The chill hit me right away. I never should have opened that door. It was just a flimsy wooden frame, but it led me somewhere dark, somewhere I never intended to go. That I was just walking my usual path, earbuds in, music blasting, feeling invincible. Then I saw it, a crack in the trees, the shadows deep, beckoning like an old friend. Curiosity tugged at me, whispering lies about adventure. I ventured in, my heart pounding like a war drum. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Twigs snapped underfoot, echoing around me like whispers in a forgotten language. I strained my ears, hoping to catch a breeze of laughter, but only silence returned. The trees here loomed high, their twisted branches reaching for something unseen, casting long fingers of shadow that scratched the ground. Suddenly, a rustle came from behind a cluster of tangled roots. My breath hitched. I didn't want to turn around. I squinted into the darkness, but nothing moved. Or did it? I felt eyes watching, cold pinpricks that sent chills racing down my spine. I forced myself to take a step forward, heart racing, sweat pooling at my temples. More sounds emerged. A low hum, like a chant, weaving through the air like smoke. It wrapped around me, squeezing tight. I shivered. The ground was slick with mud, and my foot slipped, sending me crashing against a rough bark. It felt alive, pulsing beneath my touch, vibrating with energy I couldn't understand. "Get out," a voice screamed in my mind, but I ignored it. I could almost see the path widening ahead. I pushed forward, determined to uncover the secret of this strange realm. Then the whispers crescendoed, a chaotic symphony of fear and despair. The shadows danced, flickering like candle flames. That I stumbled into a clearing. Muddled moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting eerie patterns on the ground. I glanced around, and that's when I saw it. A figure slowly emerged from the shadows, limbs contorted, moving with an unnatural grace that my heart dropped. I should have turned back, but my feet were frozen. What did it want? It raised an arm, beckoning me closer. I felt the air thicken, a pressure building in my chest. Then it happened. The darkness swallowed the light, the air electrified, and a piercing scream shattered the night. Everything went black. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. When the blackness receded, I found myself still in the clearing, but it had transformed. The once soft earth now felt hard, almost metallic, and an oppressive fog clung to my skin like cobwebs. This was no longer just a forest. I was in a nightmare. The air thrummed with a low, almost imperceptible growl that vibrated through my bones. That I attempted to shake off the lingering panic, my breath quick and shallow as I searched for the figure. My heart sank. It was gone, but the air felt electrified, heavy with its lingering presence. Shadows shifted at the edge of my vision, blurring the boundary between what was real and what was imagined. The ground beneath me trembled slightly, as if something beneath was awakening. Then, the whispers returned, laced with tension, wrapping around me like a tightening noose. "Leave now, it is too late." They hissed in tones that merged seamlessly into an unintelligible cacophony. I pressed my palms against my ears, trying to block out the sound, but it seeped through, plucking at the strings of dread tied to my very soul. Desperately searching for a way back, I turned in a full circle, hoping to see a glimmer of the path I had wandered from. Instead, my eyes were met by a sight that froze me in my tracks. A silhouette stood among the trees, only this one was taller, its form shifting and swelling like a liquid shadow. It was no longer the eerily graceful figure I had glimpsed before. This was something else, something more sinister. As I stared, it elongated, arms stretching towards me like a mother beckoning her child home, but this was no loving gesture. The whispers intensified, drowning out all coherent thought. "Come closer, embrace your fate," they hissed, every syllable laced with wrongness. I didn't want to approach, but a primal urge gripped me, forcing my feet forward against my will. The moment I took a step, the ground beneath erupted in a flurry of movement. Roots twisted violently from the earth, coiling around my ankles, grasping with a desperate urgency, dragging me deeper into the shadows. Panic surged through me as I fought against their grip, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I glanced up, and my breath hitched again. The silhouette was not alone anymore. Unseen eyes glinted in the darkness, hungry and predatory, and a chorus of low growls echoed around me. The forest responded, branches creaking and bending as if alive, looming closer, the air thickening with malevolent anticipation. With a surge of adrenaline, I yanked my feet free, stumbling back. I pivoted again, the anxiety morphing into pure terror. I turned to run, heart pounding in my chest like a war drum, but the shadows shifted, stretching across the ground like fingers ready to snatch me back. Before I could regain my footing, a horrifying wail sliced through the air, a voice I recognized. The shriek was human, filled with torment and anguish, echoing from what felt like all around me. "Help me! Help me!" The sound was unmistakably familiar, and it froze me in place. I tried to spring from my memories but couldn't grasp everything at once. It was as though the very essence of the forest pulled at my thoughts, suffocating clarity. Somewhere deep within, dread morphed into understanding. I was not the only one ensnared by this malevolence. I took a trembling step towards the source of the cry, terror dancing along my spine, and felt the ground tremble beneath me again, but this time it resonated with desperation. "Please!" I shouted into the darkness, though I wasn't even certain I wanted to hear a reply. Silence hung for a moment before the wailing paused. "I'm here!" I screamed again, my voice filled with desperation. The sounds of shuffling in the darkness swelled, and then everything fell ominously quiet. And then, I saw them, pale faces emerging from the fog, mouths wide, eyes hollow like sunken depths, eyes that seemed to swallow the very light around them. They reached out with pale, skeletal fingers, vowing to pull me into the night, into a void from which I might never return. Just as they closed in, frostbitten fingers brushing against my skin, a blinding light ignited from behind me, illuminating the clearing like a sun breaking through a storm. "What are you?" I gasped, fear mingled with hope as I turned to face whatever new horror approached. But as I turned, my stomach dropped, and my heart froze with realization. The light was pulsing, breathing. It wasn't salvation. It was a herald of something more terrible than I could comprehend, trapping me between two nightmarish realities. Then the presence loomed larger, stepping into the light, and as it did, I screamed, but the sound was lost, silenced by the encroaching darkness that beckoned me back in with a sinister siren call. The figure in the light was not what I had hoped for. It resembled the silhouette from before, except it had taken shape. This time, it had teeth, rows and rows of them, like a grotesque decay of sharpened ivory. Eyes glowed a sickly yellow, radiating malevolence as they scanned me hungrily. The whispers returned, merging with the low growls that pulsated through the clearing, a symphony of despair, each note a promise to claim me as one of its own. "Join us," it hissed, the syllables twisting and curling in the air like smoke, suffocating all rational thought. "Leave the light, embrace the darkness." Each word seeped into my mind, threading through my very essence. The pale faces in the shadows pressed closer, their skeletal fingers stretching out to me, pleading with a desperation that seemed to transcend their tormented forms. Their lifeless mouths formed silent screams, eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that tore at my sanity. I screamed, shaking my head violently, forcing my feet to move. I wasn't ready to give in. I couldn't join them. I turned, hurtling toward the deep gloom of the forest in a frantic bid for escape. The oppressive air thickened around me, the very shadows pulsating, wanting to consume me whole. Each step felt like a betrayal of my will, as if the earth itself was conspiring to drag me back to that nightmarish realm, but my legs felt as heavy as stone. I stumbled, and the ground bucked beneath me, a vast, undulating surface that felt alive and hungry. I could hear them then, the whispers of those snared before me, melded with laughter that curdled the blood in my veins. Their voices encircled me, embedding doubt into my heart. "You cannot escape, you belong to us." Just as I regained my footing, a shadow lunged from the undergrowth, a beast with amorphous limbs, massing together with screams of anguish that echoed from its very being. I barely had time to scream before it lunged at me, jaws agape, revealing a void where its throat should be. I recoiled, the stench of decay engulfing me as I dodged to the side. As I sprinted deeper into the forest, branches lashed out like desperate hands, snagging my clothes and tearing at my skin. I gritted my teeth against the pain, unwilling to give in to that darkness. But just as I tore free, I heard another familiar voice rise above the thrumming chaos, the voice of someone I could never forget. "Don't leave me." It creaked, a voice I had once cherished, now twisted in a haunting echo. My stomach dropped, and I skidded to a halt, caught between the urge to run and the dreadful compulsion to turn back. A ghostly figure flickered in the distance, half-formed against the haze, calling out for help with desperation that wrapped around my heart. Is it really you?" I gasped, unaware of the shadows closing in around me, each whisper clawing at me. My senses warped, blurring the line between hope and despair. The spectral apparition beckoned, ethereal hand stretching out toward me, the light around it oddly comforting against the clammy chill in the air. Suddenly, the figure distorted, as if pulled by an unseen force. The light dimmed, paled by the encroaching shadows that surged around me, devouring warmth and color. With it came a monstrous roar that rattled the trees, causing them to shudder violently. An overwhelming dread surged in my veins. I could sense them drawing closer, the monstrous entities lurking behind memories that threatened to consume everything I loved. No. "I won't let you take me," I shouted defiantly, lungs burning and pulse racing as I burst forward in the direction of the fading light. But the forest was insatiable, twisting and contorting, the ground shifting like an unfinished puzzle. I heard the growls rising in volume, the gnashing of teeth echoing like a bell tolling for me. The wails of despair grew louder, merging with the call of my loved one, forming a haunting melody designed to drag me into the abyss. "Help me! Help me!" The light flickered out completely, plunging me into a silence so profound it threatened to swallow my sanity. Then came the scream, a gut-wrenching scream that clawed at the very fabric of reality. Just as I reached the spot where the figure had been, ready to grasp it and haul it closer to the safety of the light, everything shifted in a blinding flash of dark energy. A piercing cold enveloped me, and as I turned to look behind, I witnessed the pale figures materializing in swarms, their hollow eyes fixed on me with a voracious hunger. I stumbled backward, terrified and disoriented, as the shadows thickened, liquefying around me, merging into a dreadful form, the creature looming over me, those wicked teeth gleaming in the dark. "Join us," it whispered in a voice that crackled with anticipation. My chest tightened. The ground began to crumble beneath my feet. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the void. As I fell into darkness, I caught one last glimpse of the familiar figure, its face twisted and horrified, its eyes wide with anguish before a ghostly hand reached out, the last remnants of the light flickering away into a suffocating despair, and then nothing. My consciousness resurfaced in a haze, swirling gray obscuring my vision. I lay on something cold and unyielding, not the forest's damp earth but a flat, smooth surface that made the back of my neck prickle with dread. Panic gripped me as memories flooded back, the chase through the trees, the figure, the screams. Slowly, I pushed myself up, bracing against the chill that clung to my skin like an unshakable shadow. Around me stretched an expanse of darkness, an unnatural stillness that suggested something lay in wait. It was as if I had been transported into another realm, one where light dared not tread. I squinted, aware that my instincts were screaming at me to move, to run further from whatever horrors lurked in my surroundings. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I called, my voice sounding weak, a mere echo swallowed by the void. An eerie silence met my query, leaving only the slow drip of water against what felt like stone. The heavy air pressed down on me, thick and suffocating as if the very atmosphere desired to consume me whole. Then, through the void, a flicker caught my eye, glimmers of movement in the shadows. I turned, heart racing, thoughts tumbling in turmoil. What had I entered? A graveyard? A prison of souls? My breath caught in my throat as I sharpened my sight, focusing on the indistinct forms that shifted with a purpose, their features obscured but their intentions terrifyingly clear. Help. A voice, tiny and broken, whispered from the darkness. It was a sound that clawed through the fabric of the air, gripping my heart with icy fingers. Please, who's there? I gasped, barely able to contain the tremor in my voice. The shadows twitched, creating distorted shapes that twirled between existence and oblivion. Show yourself. They came closer, their fleeting forms revealing more of themselves, transparent faces twisted in agony, eyes sunken deep in infinite despair. A chorus of silent screams surged forth, echoing the very essence of their torment, a shattered remnant of humanity tangled within the sinister energy pulsating all around me. That I staggered back, feeling the walls compress, choking my breath. What do you want? Do not leave us. They reached out, skeletal fingers clawing through the space between us. You can save us. You know the way. The voices melded into one, a frantic call that surged against my senses, beckoning me toward a path obscured in desperation. As my terror began to coalesce into a flicker of defiance, anger surged forward. Save you? I shouted, voice breaking. You're the ones dragging me into this nightmare. But they continued to approach, the shadows around them swirling almost playfully as if to mock my growing terror. You must help us, before it's too late. That I in that moment, a horrific understanding took root in my mind. They were trapped, bound to this wretched place by some unspeakable calamity. And I, in my unwitting journey, was the key, a pawn who had inadvertently drawn the attention of forces far more powerful and unfathomable. Then came a ripple of cold that interrupted my frantic thoughts, snaking through the air and chilling the breath in my lungs. I turned again, the ground tremoring beneath my feet as the darkness plumed and converged. A figure solidified within the shadows, its form expanding grotesquely, resembling that wretched beast I had fled from. Its jaw unhinged with a crack that echoed through my bones, a sound composed of every fear, every heartbreak. You should have never come here, it growled, the malice in its voice wrapping around my throat. Now your soul belongs to us. As I stepped back, the walls of the realm began to tremble, vibrating with an ancient rhythm, a song of fear and despair. I could almost feel the forest whispering my name, the lurking shadows pulling together, twisting like ink in water, ready to consume everything, anything, even hope itself. The pale figures surged toward me, reaching with hands that promised salvation and damnation in equal measure. You can be free. They cried in unison, their lips curling in agonizing desperation. Find the heart. It beats with rage and sorrow. It was then that I felt the tremors intensify beneath me, a rising tide threatening to sweep me away. I was caught in a battle between the sirens and the beast's. Desperation is a powerful motivator. Before I could register a thought, the ground beneath my feet split open, darkness swallowing the space around me like a ravenous maw. Find the heart echoed in my mind, drowning out the cacophony of despair as I was hurled into the abyss of Shadowsa. Wild grip on my sanity slowly slipping away into chaos. And then, against the clamor of that darkness, a heartbeat pulsed, a furious, desperate thrum that resonated with my very soul. Help me. It was my own voice, summoning me back into the fray. With a gasp, I plunged deeper into the void, racing toward that sound, obeying the pulsating call and abandoning the warnings of the wretched figures now swirling behind me, now lost to my sight. The echo of their plight reverberated through the darkness, but I knew one truth: it was now or never. But as I drew closer to the heart of this evil void, the realization set in: it was not just my salvation I sought, it was also my willing condemnation. There, in that perilous chase, a horrifying thought crept into my mind: the very heart I was searching for could very well be my own. And as I prepared to let the echo consume me, I reached into the blackness, prepared to uncover the truth or lose everything forever. The darkness pulsed around me, an entity resonating with the echo of that frantic heartbeat. Each thrum seemed to draw me closer, wrapping its malevolent tendrils around my spirit, luring me deeper into the maw of despair. The abyss dripped with a thick, cloying dread that weighed on my chest, each inch forward a battle of wills. Help me. You must help me. The voice begged again, a fractured version of my own, both pleading and commanding. It filled the void with a haunting gravitas, making it nearly impossible to judge where it originated, the heart, or the very depths of my own soul disintegrating beneath misery. I raced forward through the obsidian murk, moving as if through gel, fingers outstretched toward the pulse of light that flickered just out of reach. With each desperate breath, the chilling realization grew: I wasn't simply navigating through darkness, but confronting an overarching malevolence, a sentience that twisted with my every step, trying to play me against the voices of the lost that now whirled in a tormented frenzy around me. The figures drifted like smoke, their faces contorting in grief, their once whispered promises transforming into desperate yells. "Don't let it take you. Save what's left of your heart." They screamed, liquid despair oozing from their eyes, urging me back, warning of a terrible fate. They stretched feeble hands, trying to hold on to something tangible, as if keeping me anchored would grant them a moment's reprieve, but I couldn't falter now. The heart beat a maddening rhythm that spoke to me, dancing tantalizingly close. It drew me in, almost seducing my resolve. With every pulse, another fracture of memory split through the haze, the sound of laughter, the promise of love, lost so profound it tore through my essence. It all underscored what I was truly seeking, the remnants of a life long extinguished. The heart that once beat strong and wild was now a shadow of its former self, echoing within this fetid void. The deeper I plunged, the more vividly I sensed the horrors lurking just beyond reach. Shapes darted at the corners of my vision, flickers of silver eyes filled with longing and torment, creatures once human, now twisted by despair. They called out muffled, morose. "We were all promised freedom, but that doesn't exist here." Then the ground heaved violently beneath my feet, throwing me to my knees. The shadows roiled and churned, morphing into nightmarish visages, suffused with vice and regret, the detritus of anguished souls clawing for recognition. "Help me find my heart," a whisper reached my ears, laden with sorrow. "Help us escape this prison." I clamped my hands over my ears, desperate to shut it out, but the whispers formed a shattering chorus, hammering against my mind. Each desperate plea amplified my fear, my vision narrowing as the heartbeat intensified. It throbbed like a war drum, louder, staccato bursts echoing around me, reverberating off unseen walls. Each pulse was an oath, binding me tighter to this unfolding horror, promising salvation laced with ruin. "Follow the heartbeat," urged a phantom voice, cool and calm against the din, yet suffused with terror. I tore my hands from my ears, trying to focus on the sound, anchoring myself to that flicker of hope, and in otherworldly defiance, I forced myself to move forward, racing against my better judgment. With every step, the floor quaked, threatening to swallow me whole. But at the crescendo of my racing heart, I spotted Ida light, blinding yet inviting at the end of an ever-shifting corridor of darkness. The heartbeat was clearer now, a wild drumming that assaulted my senses, compelling me to reach for it. "Stop." A loud voice boomed, shattering the calm with an authority that sent chills skittering down my spine. In an instant, the darkness recoiled, revealing monstrous figure satyrs of despair adorned in gnarled thorns, faces hidden behind flickering masks of grief and rage. Their presence was a wall of anguish, a boundary beyond which I could not pass. "You cannot approach. Its wrath will consume you," they crooned, their voices amalgamated into sinister harmony, reverberating with unholy veracity. "Turn back." The lead figure hissed, and I froze. The heartbeat was now a violent thrum echoing through the ground, shaking my very core as shadows snaked around my legs, yanking me toward the gaping void. What was I willing to sacrifice to reach the light? The answer hung heavily, shrouded in doubt and dread. I gazed into the shifting forms of despair around me, caught in a web of their lamenting souls, their faces melding into an agonizing landscape of hope with no other outcome than destruction. And at that moment, as if the very darkness had sensed the weakness in my heart, the ground opened again beneath me, a gaping chasm, uninvited terror clawing at the edges of my sanity. I teetered precariously, gazing into the abyss that my choices had summoned. The light flickered again, a tantalizing beacon, and with the shadows clawing hungrily at my feet, I took a step forward, whether toward salvation or doom, I could not tell. And as my foot slipped into the expanse of uncertainty, the ground beneath me shattered. "Help me." A deafening roar echoed around me, chilling me to the bone as the darkness surged, and in that very moment, I was left with one horrifying thought: what if the heart I was meant to find was already mine to lose? The shadows screamed as the void swallowed me whole, the heartbeat pounding madly as fate decided which way I would fall. The air had become thick with despair as I plummeted through the dark hole, the darkness swallowing me like an eager predator. A cacophony of anguished cries surged around me, coalescing into a chilling symphony that twisted my stomach and rattled my bones. Time stretched endlessly, and just as panic began to set in, I found myself crashing onto something surprisingly solid yet unsettling: roots, gnarled and smooth, wrapped around my limbs, holding me in place like a predator ensnaring its prey. Dazed, I blinked against the dim light filtering through an overhead canopy. The forest loomed around me like a crypt filled with shadows. It was a place haunted by the unspoken, each twisted tree cloaked in vibrant vines that resembled chains gripping the very air. I struggled against the roots, but they tightened their hold with every ounce of fear that surfaced. The ground pulsed beneath me, throbbing like the frantic heartbeat I had chased, yet in a way that sent chills spiraling down my spine. Hurry! A different whisper came, almost urgent, slicing through the din. It felt distinctly more corporeal, laced with desperation. You must find the heart before the forest awakens. Panicked, I turned my head towards the trees, where thin branches writhed as if beckoning me closer. But there was something wrong. The forest was alive in a way that felt predatory, shifting and shivering in anticipation, as if the very fabric of reality was a tapestry threaded with the torment of those who had wandered here before. I couldn't tell if they were encouraging me forward or trying to warn me away. Every breath felt like a curse carrying me deeper into a malevolence I barely understood. Are you lost? A soft, lilting voice cooed. I gasped, recognizing it as the same whisper that had previously tormented me. Stay with us a while, the voice sang, warped and almost mocking. A figure emerged from the shadows, the figure of a girl, no older than 10, with hollow cheeks and shiny, tear-streaked skin. Whispers flitted out from her mouth in a trail of dark smoke, swirling in the air around us. Where is the heart? I demanded, my voice trembling. With each word, the grip of the roots loosened slightly, as if my defiance had stirred something within me. It beats among the lost, she replied, her eyes dim, devoid of life as they locked onto mine. Among those who chose to linger in the past. Do you wish to save them? To rescue even a fragment of your forgotten self? As shadows danced across her face, revealing her dreadful smile, a terror struck me deep in my core. I could feel it now, an awakening footfall on the forest floor, the resonance of time folding back on itself, the trees shifting in discontent. You shouldn't have come here, the girl whispered, her form flickering like a candle, revealing the gnarled roots twisted into her flesh. We are bound to our choices. Those who fail to leave remain forever. And others, they simply fade away. No, I choked, partly in horror, partly in defiance. I can change my fate. The ground trembled violently, as if it could sense the defiance coursing through my veins. Nearby trees groaned, their branches weaving together like skeletal fingers reaching out toward the girl. I realized with horror that her pitiful form was merely an echo, one of many lost souls clinging to the chaos of this cursed forest. With newfound urgency, I clawed at the roots imprisoning me, desperately fighting against the pull of the darkness that surrounded me. They tightened their hold, whispering endlessly, begging me to give up. Stay. It's easier, you'll be safe, they echoed, but just as hope flickered in my chest, the forest erupted in a sudden cacophony of howls, the anguished wails of those still trapped in this twisted dimension. The heart will not be found unless you succumb to your own shadows, they cried, the voices merging into a dirge, shaking my resolve. I swung my legs, tearing through roots, feeling the sharp bites of earth and splintered wood surrounding my ankles, and then, there it was, the thrum of the heartbeat again, steady and booming, resonating. From somewhere deep in the depths of the fallen leaves. A shimmering path collapsed before me, leading hungrily toward a clearing, a glimmer of elusive light dancing almost mockingly in the distance, an unyielding beacon igniting dread and hope within me. I sprang up against a surge of weighty despair, forcing myself to run through a curtain of dark smoke that whispered more truths than it concealed. The shadows writhed around me, clawing at my consciousness, dragging at my limbs, whispers turning into screams as the forest awakened further, branches lashing out like living serpents, but I pushed ahead, shouting against the encroaching blackness. "I will not become one of you!" I screamed, the words splintered with emotion, each syllable breaking through the cacophony, threatening to push me into oblivion. In a flash, the clearing expanded before me, an ethereal glimmer emerging larger than life, pulsating like a cosmic heart. But just as I approached, a shrill voice ricocheted around me. "Stop!" It rang out, clear yet filled with exaggerated menace, and at the very moment, I felt a dark figure stepping forth from the shadows, blocking the path to that brilliant light. It towered above me, contorted and alien, its eyes like twin abysses. And as it reached toward me with skeletal fingers dipped in shadows, a shocking realization struck. What if the heart I was meant to find was not an object at all? Before I could contemplate the implications, the shadows surged, and everything spiraled into darkness once more. Just as everything faded to black, I heard it, the heartbeat aligning and crashing against the hollow echoing void I was trapped in, as it began to chant a single haunting word. Return, return, return. Was it possible to come back once more? To find a way back, or was I forever ensnared in this realm of nightmares? The darkness folded around me, thickening like a suffocating shroud as the chant faded into the oppressive silence. There, I lingered in that endless black, suspended between despair and the beckoning call of the heart. But something shifted, a whispered promise tugging at my mind, igniting embers of forgotten memories that rippled through my consciousness. "Find your way home," a voice urged with twisted familiarity, bursting through the silence. "Only then can you be free." It was an echo of phantom entwined with pain, resonating through the hollow walls of my soul. Struggling to piece together the remnants of the past, I gasped for breath, the painful tug of my own heartbeat mingling dangerously with the one echoing into the void. Suddenly, shades of emerald green flickered back to life as I blinked against a wavering light. I gasped, recognizing the ghostly contours of trees once again surrounding me, each silhouette adorned with swirling shadows flickering like distant stars. The air stung with dampness and a visceral tension, thick with the acrid scent of decay. Instinctively, I stumbled forward, desperate to follow that flickering light with more clarity now, where it beckoned me into another section of the forest, deeper and more treacherous than before. As I crossed this perilous threshold, a dreadful thought settled within me: was this another trap? And yet, the pull towards that ethereal glow was overpowering. Trees loomed, their bark gnarled and contorted like gaping mouths, whispering secrets lost to time as they stretched their twisted limbs out, entreating me deeper. "Join us, we were once lost too," they murmured, their voices an amalgamation of sorrow and seduction. Yet there was a hesitation there, a force tethering me with each step, as if the ground conspired against my escape. The heartbeat thrummed beneath the root-riddled earth, almost aligning with my frantic pulse. In that moment, memories surged, and the ghastly figure that had blocked my way materialized within my thoughts like a dark omen. Mottled skin clung to bone with a grotesque grace, an echo of what I might become if I failed to escape. A vision gripped me then, faces I thought I had long forgotten, sketched vividly in the depths of my mind, a pair of loving eyes brimming with warmth, a hand reaching for me, disappearing just as quickly into void. My heart ached as the truth unfurled. They had come to find me too, lost in this land of never-ending night. Bracing myself, I forced my feet to move, a primal instinct igniting my resolve. "I can't stay here," I whispered, each step screaming against the whispers of those who had fallen prey. "I won't let it claim me." But my cries only summoned a cacophony of laughter that echoed like the haunting wind. The trees danced, mocking my defiance, vibrating with a sinister energy as the shadows leapt closer, clawing at the edges of my consciousness. In the air, I felt a presence, a growing malevolence, something ancient and insatiable, hungry for another soul to torment. The light ahead flickered, shimmering with the promise of salvation, yet it dimmed with each heartbeat. Rushing forward, I felt the ground shift, twisting beneath my feet as laughter became a raging storm. "You wish to leave?" A voice I recognized from earlier sneered, unrelenting in its chilling mirth as gnarled roots lunged at me like serpents. "No one leaves the shadow of the heart." I raised my arms instinctively as the roots draped over me, the once loose vines tightening mercilessly around my torso. Panic swelled, my vision blurring as I wrestled with the creeping darkness. With every ounce of strength left, I yelled, forcing back against the pervasive dread, "No. I will not surrender." Just then, the heartbeat erupted, pounding faster, a chaotic symphony echoing through the forest as if it responded to my resolve. The world around me dissolved, and I felt the weight of the closing shadows shattering only to be engulfed instantly in blinding light that I stood in the clearing, breathless and desolate. The pulsating heart loomed larger before me, a grotesque and magnificent organ, beating against the rhythm of fear. Staring into its depths, I caught a glimmer of movement, faces forming in the thin mist swirling around it, pale and searching, hauntingly familiar. "Please, save us." The chorus of voices cried out in desperation. But standing at the brink of the heart's unbearable gravity, I froze, paralyzed in horror as one face broke free from the moss, a face I knew all too well. "Mom." The whisper escaped my lips, both a spark of hope and a stab of dread, as her once warm smile transformed into a mirror of anguish. "Help me," she implored as the shadows lunged forward, ready to ensnare us both. And then, I heard its single, unnerving heartbeat shift, letting a flourish of despair wash over me as the shadows closed in. "Return, return, return," they chanted again, their echo stronger than before, enveloping everything in darkness. That I, in that moment of unbearable choice, the weight of my past collided violently with my longing for freedom. With the suffocating dread at my back and my family's lost faces before me, I stood on the precipice of obliteration, forcing my heart to decide in a flash of panic what would I sacrifice to save them. The heartbeat quickened, a countdown to the end as the shadows surged forward, and I realized with horror that no matter what choice I made, it would bind or break us all forever. The shadows pressed in closer, their icy breath brushing against my skin, urging me toward the heart, a grotesque center of anguish looming just beyond my grasp. As I stood there, caught between the flickering specters of my past and the darkness that threatened to swallow me whole, I could feel an unspeakable hunger rising within me. It pulled at my insides, writhing like a serpent eager to escape a trap. "Mom!" I screamed into the void, a desperate plea that echoed into the suffocating silence that followed. Her face, twisted in horror, flickered like a candle about to be snuffed out. "Please don't leave me, help me," she cried again, her voice quivering, tugging at my heart. It was an agonizing reminder of the safety I had longed for, a safety I might lose yet again. Pride surged against fear within me as I weighed my options, the heartbeat a maddening metronome marking my terror. The shadows shifted, an undulating wave ready to crash. I could see them sweeping around the perimeter of the clearing, dark forms writhing like ink spilled on water, actively searching for a way in. A snarl of laughter erupted from behind them, hollow and bitter, resonating with each pulse of the monstrous organ. "Such a shame," a familiar voice twisted through the wind, its haunting echo making my skin crawl. "Not everyone can save themselves. Come join the feast instead." I could feel their salivation, the anticipation of the shadows, an ominous promise that each heartbeat brought me closer to sharing in their torment. Anger and desperation coiled around me, binding my mind tighter than the deceptive vines. With that energy coursing through my veins, I took a step forward, heart hammering painfully against my chest. "Stop it. All of you!" I shouted, rage fueling my desperation. I wanted to believe the warmth of my mother's spirit could reignite the hope I needed. The figures in the mist twisted briefly as my voice clawed through the terror, and those sad faces flickered more vividly for a moment, echoes of love and longing dancing across a tapestry of despair. Do not falter. Remember us. They cried, a wave of encouragement washing over me in the undulating currents of despair. With steady resolve, I turned my eyes back to the heart, whose rhythm pulsed with an almost magnetic intensity, synchronizing perfectly with my own. The grotesqueness of it fed my fear as I realized what it truly was, an ancient conduit of suffering, a pit in the darkness lurking for another soul to engulf. Before I could unravel the implications of my revelation, the shadows lunged again, closer this time, shrieking in a cacophony of forgotten regrets that echoed off the trees. "You cannot escape. You belong to us." I pivoted once again, seeking a way to escape, instinct demanding movement as I stumbled back. The ground beneath me shifted, quaking with feral energy, and a chill ran down my spine as I felt the approach of something far worse than shadows. It was the scent of rot and decay, a vile reminder of endless suffering. Trust in the darkness, the sinister voice taunted, reverberating through the clearing like a twisted lullaby. It will always welcome you back, the pulse of the heart drummed on, each beat a pulse of life in the chaotic stillness, reverberating through the night and propelling me forward against my instincts. I charged toward the heart, knowing that somehow I had to confront this source of torment. As I reached out, the air thickened, the shadows howling like a banshee at the intrusion. No. The specter of my mother shrieked, her words breaking into frantic pleas. You must choose, my darling. Save yourself or save us. I hesitated, my hand frozen just before the surface, repulsion and longing roiling within me. What do I need to do? I implored, my voice barely a whisper against the zealous chorus of the shadows. Sacrifice. They echoed in unison, and the realization crashed upon me, splintering my resolve. Feed the heart. Only then will you be freed. A gut-wrenching chill cascaded through my body as I fought against the deep swell of dread, my choices narrowing to an unbearable point. Suddenly, the clearing erupted into chaos as the shadows reached out, clawing for my limbs, ripping the battered fabric of my sanity into threads. Do it. The voices urged, distorting with feverish excitement, a torrent of sinister encouragement enveloping me. The flickering light from the heart grew dimmer, signaling the inevitability of my decision just as the gnarled roots of the forest clawed ferociously at my feet, attempting to drag me into an abyss of despair. I stood upon the precipice of ruin and salvation, feeling the tremors of the malevolent heart wrenched with my own life force. In that final breath of clarity, I knew I held my fate in trembling hands, and time felt suspended, each moment sprawling into countless possibilities, irrevocable choices weighing heavily. Choose now. The shadows screeched, the pressure mounting as I felt my mother's spirit waver and falter in the haze of suffocating shadows. And that next breath, with horror clawing at my mind, I knew I was about to plunge into a darkness that would either save us all or consume us entirely. The ground shifted violently beneath me as a new wave of shadows surged forward, their dark tendrils clawing and grasping at my ankles, seeking to pull me into their abyss. My heart pounded in my chest, matching the pulse of that dreadful organ beating in the center of this cursed clearing. With every second, the cacophony of tortured souls grew louder, their wails an unholy symphony that gnawed at my resolve. You're almost there, the shadows chanted, their voices merging into a single, unsettling choir. Embrace the hunger. Feel it consume you. My breath came in ragged gasps, a mix of fear and desperation tearing at my throat. I could feel the sadness seeping from the woods around me, a dreadful mirage of lost hope and vanished memories. My mother's face flickering in the dim light wrapped around me like a serpent, her expression filled with anguish, urging me not to succumb. Please, she whispered, her voice fraying at the edges, echoing through the chaos. Don't listen to them. The shadows' laughter twisted like knives in my ears, surging with an urgency that clawed at my very soul. Surrender. Sacrifice for salvation. Feed the heart. The insatiable appetite of the grotesque entity beckoned with a sinister charm, a promise of release yet equally a threat of everlasting torment. That I stumbled backward, the terror a tangible cloak around me, and stumbled into a thicket of ancient trees whose gnarled limbs stretched toward the heavens like skeletal fingers clawing for light. The branches seemed to twist around me, holding me as if they were alive, imprisoning me in their suffocating embrace. Panic surged through me as I realized I was being drawn deeper into the dark embrace of the forest. No. I gasped, struggling against the roots that seemed to snake around my legs, pulling me into the suffocating gloom. I shook my head, frantic, searching for the warmth of my mother's spirit, clinging to that flicker of hope against the rising tide of despair. Suddenly, from within the dark, a figure emerged, a cloaked shadow standing at the edge of the clearing, eyes glimmering like dying stars. The presence radiated something ancient, an insidious wisdom that made the very air around me chill. Do you see the truth? The voice dripped with malice, echoing like the chiming of distant bells, sharp and deadly. To live, one must die, become part of the darkness to escape this cycle of grief. That I clutched my head, fierce denial coursing through me, each pulse of the heart a warning against losing myself to this unfathomable void. No. I will fight this. I screamed, my voice piercing the cacophony as I tore my gaze from my mother's fading semblance, wrapping myself in the downward spiral of anguish. Fight? The figure took a step forward, the shadows writhing around it like ants swarming, hungry and eager. In fighting, you only prolong the suffering. Embrace the truth of this place, and release us all. Release. Rage ignited once more, burning through the shroud of fear. You want me to lead others into this nightmare, others? A sharp, hollow laugh resonated from the shadow. Oh, dear soul, there are none left to save. Look. With a flick of its wrist, the shadow summoned a wave of images that flashed before my eyes, faces of those who had wandered into this forest before me, their twisted expressions pleading for recognition that would never come. Faces fading, swallowed whole by despair that I recoiled, bile rising in my throat as the vision smoldered away, replaced with the awareness of my own reality. What have you done? I gasped, stepping back as the grasp tightened around me. We've merely made room for more, it retorted, its voice dripping with dark satisfaction. With your sacrifice, others will be liberated. Join us, and become the salvation they seek or perish in your fear. The darkness began to swirl faster, enveloping everything in its grasp, and the air thickened with despair as the sound of maniacal laughter hurled around me. The heartbeat of the heart hollowed, like a drum announcing impending doom. I understood then this was not just a choice for me, my very existence hung in the balance against an unending horror, and just as I thought I had found a flicker of strength within, something pierced the Hazia surge of breath against my neck, ice cold and vaguely familiar. I turned, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach as my mother's spirit, now translucent and trembling, reached for me through the shadows. Don't listen to them. You can't give in. She cried, her voice streaked with fear. You must find a way to freedom, not just for yourself, but for all of us. Her plea cut through the shadows, igniting a moment of clarity in the chaos swirling around me, but just as quickly, the deep laugh of the cloaked figure echoed louder still. She's losing her light, dear heart. Embrace what you cannot escape. The ground trembled again, the heart's pulsations now quicker, more frantic, climbing to an unholy crescendo. I felt the shadows clawing deeper into my mind, wrapping around my heart with a chilling grip as memories of joy and laughter morphed into agonizing screams of despair. And then, in a moment that froze eternity, I saw a shadow break away from the darkness. A spectral figure, familiar and terrifying, reached toward me from the depths. The connection felt unmistakable, undeniable, the eyes glimmering with an intense sorrow that shattered through my resolve, a face I hoped never to see again. Come to us, it beckoned, hand extended through the darkness as I felt my will trembling beneath the weight of that sinister invitation. As the shadows shrieked, twisting and lurching in anticipation, the forest erupted around me, leaving me on the cusp of a horrific realization. What I was about to forsake, whom I might become a part of, it loomed larger than the hunger I could no longer deny. And with the earth's final lurch beneath me, balance was lost. The fragments of my belief shattered like glass as I faced the choice ahead, the shadows from that haunted heart lunging forward, ready to claim me in a horrifying embrace. The moment held, stretched taut like breaking string, forever locked between salvation and despair as time shuddered, leaving only the chilling question hanging in the air: would I choose to satisfy the heart's hunger, or would I spiral into darkness, forever haunted by the voices of those who had become its feast? As the shadows lunged toward me, each tendril a promise of torment wrapped in a sickening warmth, I experienced a horror so profound it felt like drowning in my own despair. My heart raced as the pulse of the gruesome heart quickened, each beat a dark taunt that reverberated through the forest. I stumbled backward, panic clawing at my throat, but there was no escape from the inevitable. Join us, the dark figure hissed, its many eyes glimmering with hungry excitement as if relishing my struggle. The faces of the lost encircled me, their silent screams tugging at the edges of my sanity. They were my familiar friends drowned in the blackness, their hopes snuffed out, turning to shadows in the swirl of suffocating despair. Save me. My mother's spirit echoed, her voice a distant melody swallowed by the ancient trees, desperation threading through it. Fight. It's not too late. I felt the ground trembling beneath me, quaking with the weight of decisions yet unmade. Each pulse of that accursed heart felt like a noose tightening around my throat, a suffocating reminder of the reality that bound us, a reality of choices made, shadows chasing, souls forgotten. Reaching for the flickering light of my mother, I had one terrifying thought: what if the heart didn't just want to feed on my fears but on my very essence? What if the darkness that called me had already fed on me before? What if I refuse? I shouted defiantly, my voice barely a whisper against the chorus of despair. What if I turn my back? In that instant, the shadows recoiled, flickering in disbelief, a tide of darkness swirling and writhing as if wrestling with a truth it refused to accept. You cannot escape your destiny. It was not a taunt but a plea warning, emanating from the shadows in an ugly eruption of fury, trapping me in a web of my own sickening fate. But I was tired of fear, I was exhausted from fighting against my own memories. I am not afraid of you. I bellowed, my own words rekindling the spark of will buried deep within. You may have taken so much, but you will not take my past or my heart as your feast. As I stood there, a tempest of emotions swirling around me, another wave of rage surged through me, fueled by the ache of loss. The vision of my family faded into a memory, then transformed into something rawer, darker, a mirror of the grief that swallowed me every day. And in that moment, everything clicked. The heartbeat, the essence of despair woven with the memories, they weren't just artifacts of the darkness. They were part of me, part of a love lost yet cherished. Perhaps, I whispered, to restore them, I may need to lose myself. With renewed determination, I surged forward against the tide of shadows that tried to claim me, propelled not by fear, but by the wish to reclaim the warmth of those I loved. I reached for the heart, that grotesque pulsing organ, my hand brushing against its sticky surface, and then with the weight of all I had lost I let my heart swell with an emotion I had kept hidden too long. That I release my sorrow, I cried, my voice echoing against the walls of darkness, weaving through the swirling tendrils of shadow. Take my pain. Feel the weight of my grief. The moment my essence touched the heart, a shimmering surge broke over me, revitalizing the void around with an ethereal glow. The shadows shrieked, twisting and contorting, the whispers of anguish mingling with the release of pent-up grief, spiraling into a maelstrom of chaos. I felt the weight of their despair begin to snap, an unraveling symphony rising from the depths of that terrible heart. It pulsed, it throbbed in response, a moment of clarity as lost souls screamed, their wishes woven into my very being, and in that moment, I glimpsed the truth: the heart was not merely an object of evil. I understood now, it was a mirror of every soul lost in the cycle of despair. With each beat, it demanded satiation, a sacrifice of hope, a dark contract with those it ensnared. Yet my defiance breathed life into it anew, a desperate gamble against the darkness, setting the souls free, with every pang of sorrow. Released, a figure flickered into view, a fleeting snapshot of a face I'd known, catching a glimpse of the hope I craved. We are connected. The voice echoed, trembling in tandem with the heartbeat. You can release us. Driven by that truth, I pushed against the heart with every ounce of will I possessed, calling out the names of every lost soul, remembering their laughter, murmuring promises not yet fulfilled. The more I spoke their names, the more I felt their presence surging forth. You are not alone. I can fight for you, with you. As the heart dwindled in size, no longer a grotesque monstrosity but a flickering flame, shadows began to ebb away. The wretched forms enveloping me shrieked in fury but were swept aside, their ire displaced by the rush of lives rekindled and reclaimed, and then came the silence. The gust of wind whipped through the clearing, but the shadows once suffocating now receded, pulling back into the bowels of the forest where they belonged. Your choice has freed us. My mother cried, her spectre illuminating the very air around her, shimmering with warmth. You saved us all, but in that moment of barely won liberation, the shadows rippled behind her, fracturing the clearing with remnants of darkness that pulsed against the floor, thick and bloated with rage. We are never banished. A dark voice sneered, the shadows coiling and writhing, forming something far worse than mere despair. It was a hatred forged over centuries. You think you've escaped? We are a part of you, forever tethered. The finality of their promise settled like an anchor in my gut, and realization bore down on me with suffocating weight. I had freed those I loved, but the darkness still lingered, a shadow that entwined within the depths of my soul, a haunting presence that refused to fade. As I inhaled the freedom I had won and watched my family fade into the bright memories I once thought lost, the chilling laughter enveloped me once more, a reminder of the ever-lurking darkness, an echo of the shadows that awaited to dance again at the slightest crack of vulnerability. No, I murmured, staring into the depths of the forest where the boundaries of reality and nightmare twisted around each other, knowing that I had undone one battle, not the war. My heart galloped as a new sense of dread settled, knowing that once you open the door to despair, it never truly closes. "We will meet again when you least expect it," the voice hissed, and as I turned to leave, I felt it an icy grip on my heart. In the depths of my being, I could feel the darkness breathing behind me, and as I took each step toward the light, the haunting echoes never left. No, I realized then. The forest would always call me home.